It's 2025, we have AI, we have X, we have Y, we have Z. Why do we still do business? Why do we still manage our wealth? Why do we in the same way we moved in the 1900s? Most of my businesses, I have built them out the back of curiosity and just trying to solve my own problems first. And sometimes the problems we have, if you're lucky to find a problem that many people experience, then you have a business in your hands, $5 billion.
You're handing over your assets to a custodian. But now what you're proposing is these high net worth individuals hold on to their assets while you still help them to grow them.
Always do the most every single day, outwork, outsmart. We had very rapid success. What people call rapid success was a lot of hard work behind the scenes, but let's call it. I should have put more attention. I was just focused on growth. I screamed when I needed to cry, I cried. But every single time I made sure I showed up and just continued to do the most. There's this very popular saying that every storm eventually runs out of rain. There are so many situations where we think we own what we own, but we really don't own what we own. And we are at the mercy of a government. We are at the mercy of one powerful person. Why is it that YouTube pays you for views, but Instagram doesn't? Why is it that TikTok pays you for views, but some other platform, they do not? And all the while, it's still your data here to like the news outlets, because the market, whether crypto, whether stocks, is all news driven. We are not a fund, in quotes, even though we operate a fund. The fund right now is just to show people that there are smarter ways of growing your wealth without having to go the regular route of using like a JP Morgan wealth management.
Yes.
Where you would keep your funds there.
There's so much information at our fingertips now. And resilience plays a huge part in how far people can take themselves.
But in some days, a year can happen in a day. Success attracts a lot of friends, and you could easily mistake them as, oh, these are like my real friends and whatnot, and my real colleagues and my real partners, so just being able to have that discernment to know who is here because it's a good time, versus who is really here with you. It's only when things hit the fan, you begin to see who is really here and who was never really here in the first place. We also with a few governments as well who want to set up like Bitcoin as part of their treasury.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ecosystem Show. I'm your host, Ade Malajo, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Fijiro Hanu Agboje, a serial entrepreneur, visionary builder, and one of the most influential voices shaping Africa's digital finance future. Hanu first made headlines as the founder of Patricia, Nigeria's pioneering crypto exchange, which scaled to over 1 million users and processed more than $1 billion in volume. Since then, his work has evolved from enabling access to crypto to empowering financial autonomy. He now leads Second Mountain, a wealth infrastructure platform merging AI and crypto to help users accumulate and self-custody Bitcoin. And Glover, a fast-growing fintech company redefining how gift cards and digital value are exchanged across Africa and beyond. From Lagos to Miami, Hanu's mission is clear: to decentralize ownership, democratize intelligence, and help millions reclaim financial sovereignty in a world of rising centralization. I'm so excited to have you on the show because this is not just a story of entrepreneurship, it's a story of building infrastructure for freedom. Hanu, welcome to the show. You've transitioned from founding Patricia, Nigeria's first crypto exchange, to launching Second Mountain. How has your personal definition of success evolved through this journey?
Thank you, first up, for having me on the show today.
My pleasure.
And a huge fan of the work, and it's great to be here. To answer your question, I think that ownership is important. My journey is a testament of ownership, and what can happen if ownership is not handled in the right way. So I'm very big on ownership. I'm very big on infrastructure. I'm very big on how do we build systems that, just when I look at finance in general, a lot of things still happen just because that's how they've always been. 80s, the 80s, that's how they've always been, right, with that
Exactly.
wave, or that's how it's always been. So let it be that way. I try to ask myself, why should it continue to be that way? It's 2025, we have AI, we have X, we have Y, we have Z. Why do we still do business? Why do we still manage our wealth? Why do we still move in the same way we moved in the 1900s?
No, you're so right. And starting from selling candy at 8 years old to leading crypto ventures, what core principles have remained constant in your approach to business?
I would say the first thing is a mantra of mine, which is do the most. Basically, that's what it is, do the most. You have to always ensure that you do the most, whether it's in one thing or it's in everything, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So I personally pride myself in always going above and beyond, always making sure I give 100 and 101, doing it when it is easy, doing it when it is not easy, showing up to the gym, even though you're not feeling too strong, but you just have to just keep doing the most. But I think that's one thing that always sets you ahead. Hard work, smart work always sets you ahead. Another thing is, just being able to question the status quo. Why are we doing this? Curiosity. Why why is this way? Or how can we make this better? So always staying curious is a very important principle for me. Most of my businesses, I have built them out the back of curiosity and just trying to solve my own problems first. And I also believe that, sometimes the problems we have, if you're lucky to find a problem that many people experience, then you have a business in your hands. So I would say do the most, curiosity, always asking why, and just having that, innovation at the back of your mind. People always throw buzzwords, AI, at one point it was crypto, these buzzwords, they come and they go. What remains the same is innovation, creativity.
That's right.
How can you use creativity to connect the pieces, even the pieces that people do not think could be joined together? There's this very popular story of Steve Jobs on how he took typography classes, and that led to the creation of fonts for computers. So the dots always somehow connect, but you have to just be creative enough to find ways to connect them, even in the most unassuming ways.
Yeah, so true. And I really love what you said, do the most and stay curious. When it comes to solving problems that you discover you have, how do you translate that into solving problems that other people have?
I mean, so first of all, I just try to solve my problem first. And so the story of Second Mountain, right? The story of Second Mountain really began when Patricia got hacked a while ago. And, it was a very devastating time for us. We're fortunate enough to find the people behind it and, get them to justice, but damage had already been done. And that really just led me to think, is there a way where, assets can be safeguarded, and that introduced me to self-custody, and around the world today, if you look around, you'd see that a lot of companies, just recently we heard that Setus losing over $200 million, Bybit lost over $1.5 billion. This is something that would always continue, till the end of time if we don't take a different approach. So it was my personal problem, but when I look around, I see, X has that same problem, Y has that same problem, and all of a sudden it becomes a large sample size for people who have the same problem. And that's where self-custody is the solution, whereby you manage that ownership. So there is no situation where you're going to be hacked, in quotes. Of course, you now carry that risk of managing your keys and whatnot, right? But when we onboard HNIs into our platforms, everybody is always skeptical at first. So this is a new business. We don't know you guys so well. But once we let them know, listen, you don't even have to give us your money, right? Your money stays in your coffers, right? We can help you grow your wealth and help you accumulate more crypto, right?
That's right.
That switch comes on.
Yeah, you're so right. And I guess you could even say the original premise of a centralized exchange wasn't that far from traditional banking. You're handing over your assets to a custodian. But now what you're proposing is these high net worth individuals hold on to their assets while you still help them to grow them. I think this is really a sea change. And where the whole DeFi space seems to be going. And I think it's only going to mean better security for the owners of these assets. And if we touch on do the most again, what exactly do you mean by that? Are you competing against other people, or are you trying to be better than you were yesterday?
Well, I mean, it's so I allow people interpret it how they choose to interpret it. The ideal response would be, oh, compete against yourself. You're your own worst enemies, you know. That is the ideal thing to say. But that's not always the case for some people. Really are competitive and they thrive. That's what it is for you. Then just go and do exactly that. Do the most. It's not confined to being a great master of oneself. Yes, you know, I advocate for you to be a great master of oneself. Always do the most every single day. Outwork, outsmart your last best. But at the same time, if you also fall into that bracket of competition gets you going. I'm a big fan of football, and you see how the rivalry between two great players or the rivalry between two great teams gets each team to just keep performing at a very, very high level. Do the most as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And if we focus on Patricia a bit, its rapid growth was notable, but so were its challenges. Reflecting on that experience, what were the pivotal lessons that influenced your approach to Second Mountain?
Yeah, I mean, with Patricia, Patricia was my baby. It was a very interesting time. I started the company in 2017. I think I was 21 at the time, just right out of college. Wow. Yeah, and we had very rapid success. You know, what people call rapid success was a lot of hard work behind the scenes, but let's call it, you know, we grew to over 1 million customers. In 2020, we launched Africa's first coin card, where you could literally go to the ATMs and, you know, you can withdraw cash. And those were like the drivers, you know, because for the first time, people in Africa were able to say, okay, Bitcoin is no longer this intangible asset. I can literally spend it at the mall, at the ATM, you know, at the gas station. And we grew rapidly because we also made the cards free. We worked with the banking partner. So we did a lot of things right, you know, but we also didn't do a lot of things right as well in the business. You know, number one thing that we didn't do well was just, you know, pay very close attention to how the finances were moving at the time. You know, personally as the CEO of the company, you know, I had put my trust in like the CFO, I put my trust in the CTO, you know, and that was really one of the wrong moves. I should have put more attention. I mean, you know, I was just focused on growth. How do we get the numbers out? How do we get more users? How do we grow our transaction volume? But good thing now is I actually went to school and picked up a lot of information on finance and technology. So, you know, just trying to cover those gaps that I experienced in Patricia firsthand. But with Second Mountain, I think it's really around solving a bigger problem than Patricia solved, because now there are so many exchanges out there doing almost similar. You know, it's kind of like rinse and repeat at this point. But with Second Mountain, we're really ushering the new era of ownership on the internet. So we want to be that protocol that's, you know, we want to bring that trust, that ownership on the internet, you know. And how do we do it? Number one is through self-custody. Number two is ownership. Number three is true identity. AI is going to need identity at some point, you know.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to differentiate between human transactions and AI transactions. You need to be able to spin up identity for AIs on the fly, you know. And, you know, now we don't have any solution that speaks towards that, you know. So far more than just helping people grow their wealth, Second Mountain is really going to be that trust layer of the internet that talks about ownership, identity. Like in Nigeria, for example, where I'm from, you can buy a piece of land and that land has already been sold to like 3 other people. You know, and all of you are in courts trying to fight about that same land. But that's where ownership comes in. Ownership identity. We have a public ledger where I can, as the owner of the land, I can give you access to see the land's history, to see the current ownership, to see if there are any litigations or whatever, you know. And all of this is like tech that already exists. We don't have to build new technology. So we're really targeting ownership, identity, self-custody, but we're using wealth management as our entry into this very vast space.
Amazing. I really like the idea. In the volatile world of crypto, setbacks are common. How did you navigate those tough times, and what kept you grounded during the periods of uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot back then. 2020, 2023, 2024. Those were very tough years, especially 2023. I mean, I just realized that I cannot afford to give up, you know, cannot afford to give up, because a lot of the people I looked up to, a lot of the people that I call my friends and people that we have done good things in the past kind of like let me hang out to dry, and, I felt life was just teaching me a very harsh lesson, so I took it as a lesson, I took it as a lesson that I needed to learn as I go on the journey of life, holding no grudges with everybody and every situation as a teacher, and what I was definitely taught. But I just kept my head down when I needed to scream, I screamed. When I needed to cry, I cried. But every single time I made sure I showed up and just continued to do the most. And, I would say the hardest time are behind us now. Patricia is still going, we're still running. Pivoted to focus on our H&I clients mostly. We are slowly rebuilding and just getting back to where we used to be before.
Yeah, very powerful. And what would be your advice to entrepreneurs that are going through something similar today?
Yeah, I mean, there's this very popular saying that every storm eventually runs out of rain.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
What inspired the creation of Second Mountain? How does it differ from your previous ventures?
Yeah, I think Second Mountain is the summation of all my 10 years actively doing business. With Second Mountain, it's really about not just building a financial company or building a protocol. It's really about giving ownership back to the people. It's really about solving a fundamental problem and fixing a broken system. And the premise is simple, right? We don't really own what we think we own, right? What we think we own, because, the banks have blocked my accounts in the past, right? I have been debanked, right? Why should I ever be debanked if I really own it,
Yeah, it's a common story for all of us in the crypto space.
Exactly. You buy a piece of land, but you don't really know if you own it. In my case, again, my dad passed away and we were not able to get most of his assets, even because of broken infrastructure,
Yeah.
So it's like there are so many situations where we think we own what we own, but we really don't own what we own, and we are at the mercy of a government. We are at the mercy of one powerful person, and that has been the construct of finance and banking and ownership for the past however long, Of course, again, like I would not sit here and say there are no risk with, self-custody and ownership, but that risk is singled down to you, as opposed to the plethora of other possibilities out there. So for us at Second Mountain, we believe that if, man is going to go to the moon and we are going to become a multiplanetary species at some point, right, then we need to also take control of our ownership. We need to also take control of our assets, not just even talking about like, okay, money in the bank. Let's talk about data. Why is it that YouTube pays you for views, but Instagram doesn't? Why is it that TikTok pays you for views, but some other platform, they do not? And all the while, it's still your data, it's still your content, it's still you creating on those platforms, but it's just still that ownership factor where you're not able to monetize your ownership because you are still at the beck and call of these large organizations, the government, right? So that is what Second Mountain is all about.
Wow. No, it gets more exciting every minute. And if you think about AI and human intuition, how do you balance these two extremes in investment decisions?
What did you
So Second Mountain is about integrating AI with human insights. That's the cornerstone of your strategy. But do you have certain policies or controls in place to balance these two opposing extremes?
I understand what you mean. When people hear AI, the first thing that comes to mind is AI is making all the decisions. AI is going to find the peaks, but that's not really how it works. I'll give you an insight into how our strategy works and just using the market as an example, right? I'll give you a very good example. Trump and Elon, they were fighting just some weeks ago,
Yeah.
and the news broke, right? So when that news broke, I wasn't on my phone. I saw it like maybe 2 or 3 hours later,
Yeah.
but we had already built systems in place that this AI now, right, is able to pick up that information that Elon
Yes.
and the president of America are having a fight. Now, this AI is able to interpret what this in financial terms, right, and
Yes.
interpret it very quickly. We have a signal, an alpha that is sent. Open this now. That basically says Elon and the president are fighting. It's a good time to short Tesla.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
An example of how AI comes into the play, right? Because
That's
human
right.
beings, we're not really able to sit down in front of a computer, but once you connect
No.
this AI to like the news outlets, because the market, whether crypto, whether stocks, is all news driven to extent, we're
Exactly.
able to interpret this data and we're able to quickly act on it. And after rigorous testing, we can allow the AI make certain decisions without even having it come to a human to get permission
Yes.
to, can I do this or can I not do this? Right. That's just an example of how our trade strategy works and how we like merge AI and human insights. It is like we are not a fund, in quotes, even though we operate a fund. The fund right now is just to show people that there are smarter ways of growing your wealth without having to go the regular route of using like a JP Morgan wealth management,
Yes.
where you will keep your funds there. You have no transparency. You can't see what they're doing with your money. Your money is locked in for a year. But with us, you can go in and come out anytime you want. Full transparency. You can see how exactly your funds are moving, and you basically benefit more for being in the know than just being on the sidelines and waiting for a 1 year period to get 7% back.
Exactly. The crux of it is that the users don't hand over their assets to anyone. They hold on to their assets. And in the near future, when we perfect things like wallet abstraction and account abstraction, that's going to make the experience a lot better, because all of a sudden we don't have to worry about our keys anymore, because it's all abstracted away and it becomes a very Web 2-like way to work.
Yeah.
But beyond success, what legacy do you aim to leave in the crypto or broader financial ecosystem?
The first thing I would want on my tombstone when I leave Earth, right, what I would want written is, here lies the man who showed us it was possible. Yeah. And the reason why I chose those words, because, coming from where I come from, I was born in Nigeria. I was born in a very small state called Delta State, in a smaller city you can even imagine, and probably I've never heard of, called Warri. It is unheard of, right, that we do anything great. It is unheard of that we, build companies. It is unheard of that we raise money from VCs. It is unheard of that we build teams of 300 plus people or even become anything worthwhile. Me being able to even sit here and have this conversation with you is also a testament that it is possible. That is particularly why I'm also here in America and in Miami. Miami is the crypto heaven of, in quotes, America.
Yes.
And it's like, it is possible. You have dreams. It is possible for you to not only chase your dreams, but it's also possible for you to achieve your dreams as well. It is possible.
For those looking to venture into the crypto space, what key advice would you offer them based on your experiences?
Yeah, I would say just go. A lot of people say, oh, how do I get started? It's too different. I was interviewing a kid some days ago, and this guy was literally, he dropped out of school. He was a handyman, and he had been a handyman for 4 years, and he simply just picked up his phone and just started like participating in airdrops. He did some airdrops. He got 1 or 2 airdrops. He used the money from the airdrops to go pay for like a technical course. And I was interviewing this guy, for a mid-level engineering role.
Wow.
He was the best candidate.
Wow.
And this guy was just fully self-taught.
Yeah.
He doesn't even speak proper English, but he does what he needs to do very
Yeah.
well. So that
Yeah.
just is likely, that's not my experience directly. That just goes to say there's nothing really stopping you from jumping in and just learning. YouTube, like in fact, there is no reason to not be learning because you
Absolutely.
have like YouTube, you have Udemy,
Mm-hmm.
you have Coursera, you have like a plethora of like 1,000,001. You just putting in that time and just being consistent with it that we need to learn how.
So true. So true. Yes. There's so much information at our fingertips now. And resilience plays a huge part in how far people can take themselves. And looking forward, what are your aspirations for Second Mountain? How do you envision its impact on the global landscape?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing would be I really want self-custody to be ushered in. And I want Second Mountain to be part of the pioneers who usher self-custody in. I want to be the only one because I believe it's a new category.
Yes.
Let's grow the pie as much as possible. But I want Second Mountain to, be part of a group that ushers self-custody in, that kind of like, looks at the current financial system and not just financial, right? The current ownership system and say, okay, there is a better way to do this and actively goals and deliver these results and people see the value in the work that we do. So that is really my outlook for Second Mountain.
Amazing. And time for some personal reflection now. If you could speak to your younger self at the start of your entrepreneurial journey, what insights or advice would you share?
Well, a couple thing I would say is, it is possible, right? Because early on, I didn't know it was possible.
Yeah.
So for so many months, I wake up in the morning and I'll turn on one motivational video on YouTube. So while I'm getting ready to go to the office for the first 1 hour, I'm just getting ginger. It's possible. It's possible. Do it. Yeah. I mean, those really help, to be honest,
Yeah.
But I would tell myself, don't worry, just, because some days it seems like nothing happens, but in some days, a year can happen in a day,
That's right.
and, especially when you're building something new, you have more bad days than good days. You just have to remember that it's possible,
That's right.
I would have said do the most, but I've always been doing the most. I will skip that.
Absolutely.
I think thirdly, but even more importantly is, be careful of who you trust. Be careful of your inner circle, because success attracts a lot of friends, and you could easily mistake them as, oh, these are like my real friends and whatnot, or my real colleagues and my real partners, so just being able to have that discernment to know who is here because it's a good time, versus who is really here with you, I got to learn that the very hard way, the very, the hardest way of all. And it was also necessary at the time. There's this saying, there's a picture actually of a guy in a stadium, right? When they put the congratulations, everybody in the stadium was cheering for him. Yay, congratulations. When it was time to put in the work, team in the entire stadium. That is, once you begin to do something worthwhile, once you begin to succeed, who would want to be associated with your success, they will sing praises, but you have to be able to cover yourself or shield yourself and not get, it's only when things hit the fan, you begin to see who is really here and who was never really here in the first place.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is consistency goes a long way, and it starts by one simple action, and stacking those simple actions together really helps you build something big. And at the same time, you need to be careful about who you're trusting. Some people are here for a good time, not a long time. It reminds me of this story I heard when I was in primary school about the chicken that wanted to make some cake. He went all around the barn asking for, for flour, for maybe a baking tray, for some milk. And all the other barn animals said they didn't have these things. But somehow this chicken, through resilience, found a way to get all the ingredients and made the cake. And then, lo and behold, it was ready, and all the barn animals came over asking to eat his cake. Which goes back to what you were saying. You know, when you're successful, that's when everyone starts to flock around you.
Yeah.
So, for listeners intrigued by Second Mountain, what steps should they take to learn more or even get involved?
I mean, it's very simple. You just go on our website, secondmountainhq.com. We accommodate universities, organizations of many kinds. We do have some limitations to who we can accept now. We're really working to scale that bandwidth because it's a lot of interest in the company right now. We also with a few governments as well who want to set up like Bitcoin as part of their treasury. Go on our website and just, fill the form. You have a quick questionnaire that will help qualify you and send you to the right place or the right people, depending on, what kind of entity you are. But we are always happy to have conversations, and guide you in any way that we can. But yeah, that's how to get started.
Thanks so much. This has been a truly inspiring session. Hanu, thanks for gracing the airwaves with all your lessons and advice. I think you should really get to work on that book that Richard Branson asked you to write. You clearly have a lot of material to put in there. Thank you so much for joining me on the Ecosystem Show, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.